Her eyes turned red that night, as if something evil had taken over. She wasn't my mother, but she lived in my father's house, and she hated me. My name is Amina, and my stepmother, Ada, never liked me. She came into our home when I was 8, after my mother died. At first, she smiled and spoke sweetly to my father, but when he was away, her face would change. The smiles would vanish, and she'd watch me like I was a rat she wanted to trap. It started with little things: missing food, broken pots, clothes I'd left out to dry would vanish. I'd tell my father, but Ada would put on her kind face and say I was being careless. He believed her. I stopped complaining after a while. It was useless. But things got worse when I turned 15. My father had to travel often for work, and whenever he left, Ada would punish me for the smallest things. One evening, she called me to the kitchen. "Fetch water from the well," she said, not looking at me. It was almost dark, and the well was far behind the house. I told her I'd do it in the morning, but she grabbed my arm hard, her nails digging into my skin. Her eyes, they were different. Angry. Furious. "Now," she hissed. I went, my hands shaking. I heard whispers in the dark as I pulled up the bucket, but I told myself it was just the wind. When I got back, she was already waiting by the kitchen door, smiling. "Good girl," she said, her voice cold. That night, I woke up to find her standing over my bed, staring at me with wide eyes. I froze, barely breathing. She leaned down, her lips almost touching my ear, and whispered, "Your mother is not here to protect you." The next day, I fell sick. Fever. Headache. I couldn't eat. Ada brought me food, forcing a smile that never reached her eyes. I was too weak to refuse, so I ate what she gave me. Each time, I felt worse. My father was away for a month, and in that time, I lost weight, my hair started falling out, and my skin looked dull. I was fading. One night, I overheard her talking to a woman who came to visit. I was lying on my mat, pretending to sleep. The visitor asked her about me. Ada laughed. She laughed so hard it made my skin crawl. "Let her suffer," she said. "She is her mother's daughter, and she should suffer like her mother did." I didn't understand what she meant, but fear gripped my heart. I was too weak to cry or move. That night, I prayed for my father to return. When he finally came home, he saw what I had become. A shadow. Thin, weak, barely able to stand. Ada pretended to be worried, saying she had tried everything to help me. My father called a traditional healer. He was an old man, and he looked at me for a long time before turning to Ada. "You have poisoned her," he said simply. Ada's face went pale, but she denied it, her voice shaking. The healer reached into his bag and pulled out a small black pot. He muttered words over it and made me drink from it. I vomited black liquid mixed with tiny bits of something that looked like crushed leaves. Ada screamed, but the healer raised his hand to silence her. "Leave," he said. My father didn't understand, but he told her to go. She left that night, cursing under her breath. I never saw her again. After she left, my strength slowly returned. It took months, but I got better. My father never spoke of her, but I knew he regretted ever bringing her into our lives. Years later, I learned that my mother had died suddenly, just after Ada started visiting my father. It all made sense then, but by that time, Ada was gone, and the darkness she brought with her was a fading memory. I still don't know what she did to my mother, but I know she wanted to do the same to me. Sometimes, late at night, I dream of her standing over my bed, whispering with those cold eyes. I wake up, my heart racing, and I check every shadow in my room to make sure she isn't there. But in the dark, sometimes, I feel like she's still watching. Waiting.